meeting me. The familiar knock woke me. I drifted off in front of the television. Hardly the first time this week. My baseball cap brim had crept down over my face, shielding me from the post-game drone. Again, the familiar knock. It was a pattern I'd used. Tap, 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 tap. Our house was at the end of a long driveway. No sidewalks in the neighborhood. It wouldn't be a random passerby. I clicked on the hall light. The knock came again. Tap, 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 tap. More insistent this time. What time was it? The clock in the hall read 11:30. I should have been in bed, but my wife was away, and I didn't start my shift for another 12 hours. "Who is it?" I said at the door. Instead of a response, I got the knock. Again. I flicked on the porch light and peered through the peephole. The form looked as familiar as the knock had sounded. I undid the lock and pulled the door open and saw myself. It was me, an identical copy. "Usually, we don't do this face to face," my clone said, but she ordered a rush. I stepped out on the porch to get a better look at myself. Same height, same face, same general build that I'd once had. I'd gained a few pounds. "You're me," I finally said. "Yes, please. And if you'll just come with me to the container, this will be all over very shortly." The clone me waved a hand towards the driveway, and I could see an idling black van. No markings. The back door was open. The interior light was on, though, and I could see the edge of a kind of yellow vat. Perhaps a tanning bed. The lid was open. A breeze rippled the grass, and the leaves in the trees moaned. I wanted to go back into the house. I wanted to go back to sleep. "You won't feel anything." "I'd like to speak to someone." The clone explained that it was late, and we needed to speed this along. I walked towards the house, brushed past my doppelganger, and started for the kitchen. That's where I'd left my phone. I needed to make one stop first, though. When I reached the kitchen, he was there, holding my phone. They implant us with all the same memories. "I know exactly what you're thinking," the clone said. He said with a kind of certainty, "In an hour, I won't remember this at all. That's the way it works." When I brought the hammer down, he slumped to the tiles. Blood oozed from his head. My head. But it wasn't a lot. He was breathing when I slipped him into the vat, baseball hat and all. I tapped on the van, and all they saw was the clone they dropped off, waving. In an hour, the new me wouldn't have remembered this, but I remember everything. And I had questions. And she'd be home tomorrow. In denial. I'm standing on a street corner. Right next to me is a small coffee shop, the local kind you only find around here. Here. Where is here? I look down at my shirt. Seattle Seahawks is what it says. Seattle. That's where I am. My hometown. It's where I live. Live. Alive. That word is sticky in my head for some reason. No matter. What am I doing here anyway? I'm holding a note. It says, "To Jake." Jake! That's who I'm here for. I remember now. I remember he said he had feelings for me. And I said nothing and ran. I bottled up the fact that I liked him too. He caught up to me being so fast. Then he said I could meet him at this coffee shop if I wanted to. I did want to. A lot. But not having the courage to speak to him, I preemptively wrote this note, proclaiming my feelings. It all makes sense now. Gosh, I must have been waiting for Jake for an hour. I look at the note again, my best handwriting on a scrap of notebook paper. Then I look at my hand holding the note. It looks wrong, pale, almost translucent. That's when I notice there's a girl talking to me. How long was she there? And how did I not notice her before? Come to think of it, she looks just like my classmate, Rain. But I'd know if Rain got a job here. I'm here all the time. Must just be a doppelganger. Wow, is she talking loudly? Dude, can you even hear me? You've been standing here for what, 8 months, 9? Do you know who you are anymore? Do you remember anything other than standing here waiting around? Do you remember me? I stare at her. She's wearing a barista apron, but she looks and sounds like Rain. We were never that especially good of friends, but I definitely know if she worked here. And what did she mean months? I've been here for like an hour tops. Rain or not Rain is still talking. Jake is gone, you know. He moved away. It's been a while since that. And you don't even know it. You're dead. And you don't even know it. You're in denial, man. Denial. I was in denial about Jake. That was the only denial I had. But I'm out of that. I know I like him. I like Jake, who did not move months ago. I saw him yesterday. I saw Rain yesterday, too. We were all together with some friends, enjoying our summer freedom. Summer. There are cherry blossoms in bloom right now. It's spring. Summer was 8, maybe 9 months ago. I look at my hands. See-through. My shirt. Seahawks. Seattle. My hometown. Where I lived and where my vision goes dark for a moment. I'm standing on a street corner. Right next to me is a small coffee shop, the local kind you only find around here. I found a 200-year-old portrait of myself at a yard sale. I always loved yard sales, and when I saw one taking place in my neighborhood, I had to take a look. It's pretty typical. Chipped old punch bowls, jigsaw puzzles, broken lawnmowers, nothing worth buying. Apart from the portrait, it was a big old anonymous oil painting of a man standing stoically before a stormy sea, with a lighthouse in the background. His clothes were from a different age, but otherwise, he was me. He was my age, my build, had my hairstyle. I must have been admiring it for a good while, as I didn't notice the elderly proprietor appear beside me. "Sorta looks like you," she said, plainly. $100. "Who is he?" I asked. "Don't know, don't care. Been in my attic since I was little. But that lighthouse is above Dunton Cove, near here," she replied. I thought it seemed familiar. I was transfixed by my doppelganger. His face was strangely inscrutable, like a blank canvas. He's got a real Mona Lisa smile. "You buyin' or not?" the seller spat. "I ain't getting any younger." I couldn't wait to show my fiancée, but she hated it, called it creepy, and sulked when I insisted on hanging the picture in our living room. Family and friends were similarly unimpressed when I invited them over to see it. "Dude's pouting like he's got a rod up his butt," said my pal Tony. "He looks so very cold, like he's got nobody." said my sister, shivering. I took a photo of myself standing before it and got a few thousand shares on Twitter and Facebook. It was sort of a 9-day wonder. My workmates thought it was kind of funny that the guy in the portrait looked like me, but they also said that he looked cruel or bitter. One of those petty jerks who can't wait to take offense, someone said. Undeterred, I took the portrait to an art expert to try and learn more. He was a stereotypical hoity-toity Brit. "Early 1800s, undoubtedly," he said. "Technically good, but heartless. The lighthouse suggests loneliness. Cliched. Bad art." His words somehow stung, and when he quoted a 5-figure sum for a pigment analysis, I stormed straight out of there. Besides, I'd already spent most of our savings repairing the ornate frame. My fiancé flipped out about this. She made me choose the portrait or her. I called her bluff and haven't seen her since. My mom was furious about this, said that portrait had changed me. My friends sided with my ex and distanced themselves. Colleagues stopped inviting me for drinks. Sometimes, as I stand gazing into the mystery man's eyes, I recall the words spoken about him by those I used to know. "That's a man who knows the value of nothing," said my mom with a shudder. "He looks like someone who drove everyone away," said my fiancé. I bet that soon after that portrait was finished, the miserable bastard jumped right off that cliff. said Tony, laughing wickedly. My face. Today has been a very strange day. When I awoke, everything was fine. Kissed the wife good morning, grabbed a shower, put on my suit, ate breakfast with the kids, and saw them off on the bus to school before heading to work. I had a meeting to get to, and I was running a little late. It was a very important meeting, so I sped there. But when I got there is when the strangeness to this day began. I parked my car in the parking garage, grabbed my briefcase, and ran to the stairwell. Flew up the stairs and into the office. Looking like a sweating madman, I ran to my office to give my briefcase to my secretary. I said, "Hello, Martha. Put my briefcase in the office, please. I'm running late to that meeting." She looked at me like I was nuts and said, "What are you talking about, Mr. Johnson? You already came out of your meeting. I saw you and everyone else leave the meeting room, and you stopped by my desk, grabbed some papers, and said the meeting went great." I told her that was impossible, that I just got here, and she must be mistaken. She said with a sarcastic tone, "I think I know your face, sir. I've been looking at you for 10 years now, boss. I'm pretty familiar. Go check the conference room if you don't believe me. The meeting's over." I went and checked the room, and she was right. It was empty. The only signs left were some leftover cups of coffee and some strewn papers littering the conference table. I turned and went back to my office, looking completely in shock, I'm sure. I walked past Martha. I could faintly hear her ask if I was okay and if I needed anything. I just tuned her out and said I was fine and went in my office and shut the door. I sat there confused, knowing I was not at that meeting. I was in my fucking car, busting my ass getting to the meeting. I stayed in my office until lunch, almost too afraid to come out, too afraid of what else could be waiting for me. At lunch, I ran into one of my work associates, and right away he said, "Hey, Johnson, great ideas at the meeting. Some of the best ideas you've ever came up with." I thought to myself, oh, great. Once again, a meeting I wasn't even at. And I had the best ideas I've ever had, too. So imaginary me is better than the real me? Is that what you're saying? Fucker? After that, I told everyone I wasn't feeling well and left early. It was almost 1 o'clock, and the kids were getting out of school, and I never have the chance to pick them up. So I called my wife, told her I would pick them up, and we'd be home shortly. We said our goodbyes, and I was at the school 20 minutes later. When I arrived, I was a few minutes late, but not that much, so I expected to see my kids waiting for me. I was a little concerned at this point, but saw their teacher and asked where they were. The look on her face was pure confusion. Mr. Johnson, you picked your kids up 20 minutes ago. I handed them to you myself. I screamed, "What are you talking about? I'm right here now. I wasn't here before. Who in the hell did you give my kids to?" She kept saying, "You. You." I was panicked, frantic. I jumped in my car and sped home. I probably pulled into the driveway 15 minutes later. I ran to the front door, flung it open, and there they were, both jumping and playing. They looked at me and said thank you for picking them up and for getting ice cream. Once again, I was completely shocked. What the fuck was going on here? This effing day is definitely the strangest day in my entire effing life. I grinned at them confusingly, walked toward the kitchen, and saw my wife standing by the sink, smiling at me. I said, "Why are you smiling at me?" She said, "That was incredible. You've never made love to me like that before. What's gotten into you? I don't think we've had a quickie before in our entire marriage." She then looked me up and down and said, "You weren't wearing that before. Why are you in a suit? You're not going back to work, are you?" I looked at her, not knowing what to say. My head was spinning. I was about to say, "I just got home. We didn't have sex just now. That wasn't me." But I stopped myself and just said no and ran to the bedroom. I got to my bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the toilet. I put my head in my hands and thought about today's events. Someone is out there living my life. And that means someone out there is walking around looking exactly like me. But that is impossible. I don't have a twin. I'm an only child. I've heard of doppelgangers, but that's just bullshit. No one believes in that crap. I need to get out of this suit and relax. Head to the closet, put on some more comfortable clothes. I turned the closet light on, and there stood me. Exact hair, exact height, exact face. But I wasn't looking in a mirror. The figure smiled at me and said, "Thanks for your life. I'll take care of your wife and kids for you." He pulled something from behind his back, and whatever was in his hand, he swiped across my throat. Then black. Helplessly awake. Marcus, dozily aware of the cool, pre-dawn dark that usually signified several more hours of restful sleep ahead, stretched indulgently before rolling onto his right side to continue his slumber. Before his mind fully yielded to the brain's need for more sleep, he became aware of a kind of lightness of feeling, as if he was floating on a gloriously huge warm cloud, with more space around him than his sleeping wife usually conceded. Maybe that's the beauty of the new memory foam mattress. Like you're sleeping on air, he thought. He liked that. Maybe he had a career in marketing, coming up with snappy one-liners to hook the customers. As Marcus played through his new fantasy of adoring colleagues, lavishing praise on him for yet another culture-defining meme, he realized he wasn't actually asleep anymore. Irritated at this waste of good sleeping time, he cracked an eye open to check the darkness in the room, to gouge the time without having to peer over his wife's shoulder at the luminescent alarm clock, thus waking himself further. That's weird, he thought. I'm not looking at Julie, who should be right here. Maybe, he pondered through the dreamy haze of recent sleepiness, I'm actually asleep right now. His one opened eye, by this time, had accustomed to the dark, and he noticed he was, in fact, looking directly at the curtain tops, which covered the main window on the other side of the bed. The itch of weirdness in a corner of his sluggish mind intensified, so he forced his other eye open and raised a hand to his face to rub some wakefulness into his vision. He noticed the lack of a blanket covering him. Weird, but okay, maybe it fell off, he rationalized. As he rubbed his face, he realized his hand was both see-through and had no effect. He could not feel his hand against his face. Trying to quell a small but undeniable sense of panic, Marcus woke fully and sat up. Looking around the room, he saw he actually was at the level of the curtain tops, the wardrobe with the dusty suitcases piled on top, and the door frame. He twisted around to look for Julie, who he found easily enough, but 6 feet below him, sleeping soundly next to someone identical to himself. Marcus's mind couldn't hold any single strand of thought steady. Flashes of I'm floating, mixed with that's me down there, with lots of what the fuck is going on? And wake up, Marcus. You're having the freakiest fucking dream right now. Staring down at the peaceful, still asleep version of himself, Marcus's mind fought for something both real and ordinary, to which he might anchor his sanity. A secretive, knowing smile crept across the doppelganger's face before it opened his eyes to look straight at him. Grinning now, it raised a finger to its lips to mockingly shush Marcus. Shh. Before its hands wrapped themselves tightly around Julie's throat. My father's doppelganger. I started to suspect my father had a doppelganger years ago. It'd be little things, rare instances at first. Sometimes something would just seem off about him. My sweet, sensitive father would seem cold and irritable, almost like a different person. Then it started to feel like he could be in 2 places at once. I would pass him in one room only to immediately see him in the next. I can remember getting out of the car before him, coming into the house, and seeing him in the kitchen moments later, totally unaware of conversations we'd just had. I'd brush past him in the hall, only to catch a glimpse of him through the open basement door, with his back turned to me. I passed him tending to the lawn, only to see him inside moments later. As I grew older, I started noticing my father's strange behavior and unexplained appearances more often. I had never once seen them both in the same place. I began to fear the doppelganger was taking over. My father is my hero and has been all my life. I would do anything to protect him. After years of hoping it would just go away, it became clear to me what I had to do. I had to kill the doppelganger. I started carrying a large pocket knife with me at all times. I mentally prepared myself for weeks. Then I finally got my chance. My mom was out of town on work, and my dad had just fallen asleep on the couch. I was going to find him. I started checking rooms, bathrooms, closets, kitchen, porch. Nothing. All that was left was my parents' room. I gazed down the long wooden hallway before me and tried not to let myself be overwhelmed. The thought of actually stabbing someone terrified me, but I knew what I had to do. I sucked it up and slowly pushed open the door. Through the dark, I could vaguely make out a mass under the sheets. Now or never. As I jumped up on the bed and straddled the body, I saw clearly the face of my father. "Oh, not now, honey," he moaned sleepily. I pulled out my pocket knife and held it up to his neck. That woke him up. "All right, you son of a bitch. Just who are you?" "What? Son, what are you?" "I am not your son. My father is asleep on the couch, so don't even try that. Tell me who you are." His eyes glazed over, and the confused expression melted into one of absolute detachment. I had never seen my father make, and never would again. "Kid, you have no idea what kind of stuff you're dealing with." "Answer me." "I can't. I'm sorry you started to catch on. You won't ever understand. If that means you have to kill me, so be it. But if you do, just promise me one thing." "What?" "Don't talk to the one in the basement." Doppelganger. They say that there's another one of you somewhere in the world. They call this person a doppelganger, which originally referred to some kind of ghost believed to herald evil or misfortune. I'm not sure I believe that. At least, I didn't, until very recently. I sit here at my kitchen table, staring at myself over a hot cup of coffee. It seems like we're both trying to figure each other out. "Well," I say with a resigned sigh, "it's time to go to work." I get up to take my keys off of the little hook by the door, but they're not there. Which one am I? Again? Doppelganger in the doorway. My name is Elizabeth Acton, and I live in a small top-floor apartment on Janus Avenue. I have a fat old cat called Domino, who is my only real companion in life, and I love reading, particularly romances. Recently, something strange is happening. I keep receiving mail for Elizabeth Acorn. I don't know an Elizabeth Acorn, and nobody by that name ever lived here. Who is she, I wonder? I say to Domino, "My name is Elizabeth Acorn, and I live in a small top-floor apartment on Janus Avenue. I have a skinny little cat called Scrabble, who is always up to mischief, and I love reading, particularly murder mysteries. Recently, something strange is happening. I keep getting letters addressed to Elizabeth Acton, but I don't know anyone by that name. Our names are similar, though. I guess there must have been some mix-up at the post office." I am spooning Domino's dinner out of the cat food can and into his bowl when I notice something odd. There is a photo in a frame on the wall I could swear I have never seen before. It's an old school photo of a young girl with a beautiful smile and striking green eyes. Under the picture is a note, which reads, Elizabeth Acorn, Class of '08. I do a double take. Now that I look more closely at my apartment, I notice some of my things have been moved around, too. Scrabble's food bowl has always been to the right of the kitchen door, but now it's on the left. The painting over the fireplace used to hang several inches higher. What's this? An engraved pen? I don't own any engraved pens. I check the name on it. Elizabeth Acton. How did her pen end up in my home? I feel a shiver. Something is wrong here. I go into the bathroom to get my pills. I look in the mirror. Elizabeth Acorn is standing in the doorway behind me. That bitch has broken into my home. We may have a similar name, but we look nothing alike. She has strawberry blonde hair and a silver bracelet. I don't even own a silver bracelet, and I never wear the light blue blouse she has on. I can tell Scrabble is scared of her long ginger hair and silver bangle. Her powder blue blouse is ugly. No wonder Domino seems frightened of her. He's hissing like crazy in the corner of the room. I have to get her out of my home. I yell and I yell at her, but she won't leave. She's shouting back at me, and I'm scared, really scared. I can't take any more of this. It's clear to me now. She is trying to steal my life. What else would she be doing, rearranging my apartment and moving herself in? I open the window. I push her out of it with all my might. A visitor. There was a knock at the door. Hey, it's Brian. The door's locked. I did not move from the couch. You're not Brian. Of course I am. Don't you recognize my voice? Of course I do. But you're definitely not Brian, I reply. Come on, open the door. You'll see it's me. I look around, trying to see if there's something I can use to defend myself if this gets ugly. I'm not opening the door. Come on, it's Brian. No, it's not. I'm Brian. I don't know who you are, I finally say. My doppelganger remains silent for a bit, but I don't feel any safer. So you want to do this the hard way, Brian? He asked. Just remember, I tried to be nice. Then, to my horror, the door unlocked and slowly opened, revealing a man who looked exactly like me, but with a wicked grin. And in his hands was a copy of my house key. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember, you can find me on Instagram at duchessof.darkness or Duchess of Dark N2 on Twitter. Also, please send me your stories or poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. Until next time.